I thought serving at the charity gala would be just another night of invisible work. But when the wealthy guests started mocking my son in his wheelchair, I never expected the host, billionaire Vincent Sterling, to stand up and declare something that would change our lives forever. If you believe in justice and second chances, hit that like button and subscribe for more incredible true stories that prove karma is real. My name is Lucia, and I need to tell you about the night that changed everything. 9 years ago, I made a decision that I thought would protect my unborn child. Tonight, I discovered that sometimes the truth has a way of finding you, no matter how far you run. It started like any other Friday evening. I was getting ready for another catering job, this time at the Sterling Foundation's annual charity gala. These events always made me nervous. Rooms full of people who spent more on a single bottle of wine than I made in a month. But the pay was good, and Daniel needed new leg braces for his wheelchair. Daniel is my world. 8 years old, brilliant beyond his years, and the strongest person I know. He was born with spina bifida, and while other kids his age were running around playgrounds, Daniel was teaching himself computer programming and dreaming of becoming an engineer. He never complained, never asked why life dealt him a different hand. He just smiled that crooked grin of his and called his wheelchair his rocket ship. "Mom, can I come with you tonight?" Daniel asked as I adjusted my black server's uniform in our tiny bathroom mirror. "I promise I'll be good. I'll just stay in the corner with my tablet." My heart clenched. The event coordinator had grudgingly agreed to let me bring Daniel, but only because I couldn't afford a babysitter, and my usual neighbor was sick. He'd have to wait in the staff break room, hidden away from the elegant guests who paid thousands for a plate of food. "You can come, baby, but you have to stay in the back room, okay? These people, they don't understand kids like you." I hated saying it, but I'd learned the hard way that Daniel's wheelchair made some people uncomfortable. Rich people especially seemed to think disability was something contagious, something that might ruin their perfect evening. We arrived at the Sterling Hotel ballroom, and I was immediately struck by the opulence. Crystal chandeliers cast rainbow patterns across marble floors, and the air smelled of expensive perfume and privilege. I helped Daniel into the break room, made sure his tablet was charged, and kissed his forehead. "I love you to infinity, Mom," he whispered, our special phrase, "and beyond, baby, and beyond." The evening began smoothly enough. I moved through the crowd like a ghost, refilling wine glasses and clearing plates, invisible to the guests who discussed stock portfolios and vacation homes in the Hamptons. I'd perfected the art of disappearing in plain sight, smile politely, say nothing unless asked, and never make eye contact for too long. But then I heard a name that made my blood freeze: Vincent Sterling. He was the host, the billionaire philanthropist whose foundation was supposedly dedicated to helping underprivileged children. I'd managed to avoid seeing him all evening, but now he was walking directly toward my section of the room. Tall, dark-haired, with those same piercing green eyes that haunted my dreams and stared back at me every day from my son's face. Vincent Sterling, Daniel's father, the man who never knew he had a son. 9 years ago, I was a junior accountant at Sterling Industries. Vincent was the CEO's son, brilliant and driven, but not yet the man he'd become. We had a brief relationship, intense, passionate, but complicated by the vast difference in our worlds. When I discovered I was pregnant, I panicked. I knew what people would say, what they'd think, that I was trying to trap him, to use a baby to climb the social ladder. So I quit. Disappeared. Started over in a different city with a different name, determined to raise my child alone, rather than face the judgment and whispers that would follow us both. Now, watching Vincent move through the crowd with easy confidence, accepting praise for his charitable work, I felt the weight of my decision pressing down on me like a physical force. Daniel deserved to know his father, but what if Vincent rejected him? What if he thought I'd hidden Daniel out of spite or greed? I was so lost in my thoughts that I didn't notice Daniel had left the break room. "Mom," his voice cut through the elegant chatter like a knife, I spun around to see him wheeling his chair toward me, his face bright with excitement. "Mom, I had to use the bathroom, and I saw all the pretty lights. This place is amazing." The conversation around us died. Heads turned. I felt the weight of dozens of stares, and none of them were kind. "What is that child doing here?" The voice belonged to Vivian Blackwood, a prominent socialite whose picture appeared regularly in society magazines. She was draped in diamonds and disdain. Her lips curled in disgust as she stared at my son. "I'm sorry," I said quickly, moving toward Daniel. "He'll go back to the staff area right now." But Daniel, sweet innocent Daniel, didn't understand the undercurrent of hostility. He smiled at Vivian with genuine warmth. "Hi, I'm Daniel. My mom works really hard to help make your party nice. Isn't she the best?" Vivian recoiled, as if Daniel had offered her a snake. "Security should have screened the staff better," she announced loudly. "We shouldn't have to deal with complications like this during our evening." Other guests began to murmur agreement. Harrison Graves, a real estate mogul with cold eyes and a cruel mouth, stepped forward. "Exactly. This is a high-class event, not a charity case showcase. Some people don't know their place." I felt heat rising in my cheeks, but I kept my voice steady. "Daniel, honey, let's go back to—" "Why is he in that chair?" interrupted another guest, a woman dripping in pearls. "Surely there are facilities for people like him somewhere else." Daniel's smile faltered. At 8 years old, he was starting to understand when adults were being mean, even if they used polite words to do it. I saw his small hands grip the wheels of his chair tighter. "People like him," I repeated, my voice sharper than I intended. "You mean intelligent, kind, and more compassionate than anyone in this room?" The crowd gasped. Staff members weren't supposed to talk back to guests, especially not to defend their disabled children. Vivian's eyes narrowed. "How dare you speak to us that way? Do you have any idea who we are?" "I know exactly who you are," I said, my composure finally cracking. "You're people who judge an 8-year-old child based on his wheelchair instead of seeing the brilliant, beautiful person he is." Daniel has an IQ of 140. He's teaching himself 3 programming languages. He dreams of designing buildings that are accessible to everyone because he believes every person deserves to feel welcome in this world. My voice was rising now, and I couldn't stop it. Years of struggling alone, of watching my son face discrimination, of working 3 jobs just to afford his medical care. It all came pouring out. You sit here in your designer gowns, talking about charity and helping children. But when faced with a real child who needs understanding and acceptance, you turn away in disgust. You make me sick. The ballroom fell completely silent. Even the wait staff had stopped moving. I realized I'd just committed career suicide, but seeing the hurt in Daniel's eyes had pushed me past caring. Harrison Graves stepped forward, his face red with anger. "That's enough. Security, remove these people immediately, and make sure this woman never works another event in this city." That's when I heard slow, deliberate footsteps approaching. The crowd parted, and Vincent Sterling walked into the circle that had formed around us. My heart hammered against my ribs as those familiar green eyes met mine for the first time in 9 years. He looked older, more serious, but the intensity that had drawn me to him was still there. His gaze moved from me to Daniel, and I watched his expression change from mild curiosity to something much more complex. Vincent knelt down in front of Daniel's wheelchair, bringing himself to eye level with my son. "Hi there, I'm Vincent. What's your name?" Daniel, still shaken by the cruel comments, but unable to resist a friendly adult, managed a small smile. "I'm Daniel Rivera. I'm 8 years old, and I like computers." "Computers, huh? What kind of things do you like to build with them?" As Daniel began to explain his latest programming project, his enthusiasm returning, I watched Vincent's face carefully. The resemblance between them was striking. The same green eyes, the same stubborn jawline, the same way of tilting their heads when they were thinking deeply. Vincent's hands were shaking slightly, as he listened to Daniel talk about his dreams of creating virtual worlds where people with disabilities could be superheroes. When Daniel finished, Vincent stood slowly and turned to face the crowd. "Ladies and gentlemen," he said, his voice carrying easily across the silent ballroom, "I need to ask you something. How many of you have children?" Several hands went up hesitantly. "And how many of you would want your children to be treated the way you've treated Daniel tonight?" The silence stretched uncomfortably. Vivian shifted her weight, suddenly unable to meet Vincent's eyes. "This foundation exists to help children like Daniel," Vincent continued. "Children who face challenges, who need our support and understanding. Yet tonight, in this very room, you've shown the exact opposite of the compassion we claim to represent." He turned back to Daniel. "Daniel, can I ask you something personal? Who's your dad?" My world stopped spinning. Daniel glanced at me uncertainly before answering. "I don't have a dad. It's just me and Mom. But she's the best mom in the whole world, so I don't really need anyone else." Vincent's eyes found mine again, and in them I saw recognition, understanding, and something that might have been pain. He walked over to me, his voice low enough that only I could hear. "Lucia Martinez, you worked in my accounting department 9 years ago. You disappeared one day without explanation, and I never forgot you." He paused, his gaze intense. "When is Daniel's birthday?" My throat felt like sandpaper. "March 15th. Vincent closed his eyes briefly. 9 months after that weekend we spent together. 9 months after I thought we had something real. And you vanished from my life." The crowd was straining to hear our whispered conversation, but Vincent suddenly straightened and addressed them with a voice that commanded absolute attention. "There's something you all need to understand about Daniel Rivera," he said. "This brilliant, brave, beautiful child that you've spent the evening mocking and trying to throw out of my event is my son." The gasps and murmurs that followed sounded like a storm breaking. Vivian Blackwood's face went white. Harrison Graves looked like he'd been struck by lightning. But Vincent wasn't finished. "For 9 years, I've searched for meaning in my work, trying to figure out why I felt so empty despite all my success. Now I know. I was missing the most important part of my life, my family." He turned to me, his voice gentler now. "Lucia, I don't know why you felt you had to disappear, but I wish you hadn't. I wish I'd been there for Daniel's first steps, his first words, his first day of school. I wish I'd been there to help you fight for him, to make sure he never had to face cruelty like this alone." Tears were streaming down my face. "I was scared," I whispered. "I thought you'd think I was trying to trap you, that you'd never believe the baby was really yours. I thought it was better to protect him from rejection than to risk it." Vincent reached out and gently took my hand. "The only thing I regret more than you leaving is that you felt you had to. But we can't change the past. We can only build a better future." He turned back to the crowd, his voice hardening again. "As for the rest of you, you've shown your true character tonight. You've bullied a child, dismissed his mother, and revealed the ugly truth behind your charity smiles. I want you to remember this moment the next time you claim to care about helping others." Vincent gestured to the security team. "Please escort Mrs. Blackwood, Mr. Graves, and anyone else who participated in tonight's harassment to the exit. They are no longer welcome at Sterling Foundation events." As the guilty parties were led away in disgrace, Vincent knelt down beside Daniel again. "Daniel, I know this is confusing and overwhelming, but I want you to know something. You are the most incredible surprise I've ever received. And if you'll let me, I'd like to be part of your life. I'd like to be your dad." Daniel looked up at me with those wise green eyes. "Mom? Is he really my daddy?" I nodded, unable to speak, past the emotion clogging my throat. Daniel wheeled his chair closer to Vincent and held out his small hand. "Nice to meet you, Dad. I've got lots of questions about computers and engineering and rocket ships. Do you have time to talk?" Vincent laughed, the sound rich with joy and tears. "I have all the time in the world, son. All the time in the world." But the biggest twist was yet to come. As the evening wound down, and the remaining guests, now properly ashamed and respectful, began to leave, Vincent pulled me aside. "Lucia, there's something else you need to know. Something that might explain why I've been so driven to help children with disabilities through the foundation." He rolled up his left pant leg, revealing a prosthetic limb. "I lost my leg in a car accident 3 years ago. I've been hiding it, afraid it would make me appear weak in the business world. But watching Daniel tonight, seeing his courage and openness about his challenges, he's already teaching me how to be brave." I stared in shock. Vincent Sterling, the powerful billionaire, had been fighting his own battles with disability, just like our son. "Daniel isn't just my heir," Vincent said softly. "He's my teacher. And you, Lucia, you've raised an extraordinary human being. I can't wait to learn from both of you." As we sat together in that grand ballroom, Daniel chattering excitedly about his latest invention, while Vincent listened with rapt attention, I realized that sometimes the universe has a way of correcting our mistakes. Sometimes the very thing we're running from is exactly what we need to run toward. And sometimes justice comes in the form of a love you never expected to find again. If this story touched your heart and reminded you that karma is real, hit that like button and subscribe for more incredible true stories. Share this with someone who needs to believe that good things happen to good people. And remember, every ending is really just a new beginning in disguise.